So good morning, everyone. Thank you for anyone who's here joining me this morning to talk about advanced directives. My name is Kira Lallas. I'm a social worker at HospiCare, so that means that I get to talk with patients about sometimes providing emotional support to prepare for the end of life, and sometimes helping prepare more practical documents like the ones we're going to talk about today. Before I start, I want to give a shout out to the Facebook Live series next week that my colleague Edna Brown is going to be doing called Tools for Connection and Wellness. That's going to be on Tuesday at 10 a.m. We've had so many great talks from folks at HospiCare, and I hope that you'll be able to join us for the ones coming up. So advanced directives refers actually to several different documents. And so I'm going to, uncharacteristically for me, sort of cut to the punchline of what I really want you to take away today, because we have such little time. We have just 15 minutes together. So I want to tell you that with advanced directives, the most important document that you could put together is a healthcare proxy. And I'm hoping in our time today that we get to talk about why that's the case, why it's the most important document that you could do. So advanced directives, as I said, refer to several different documents, but they're all meant, of course, as the name implies, to provide direction in advance. So they're documents for when we're thinking about right now, how I feel, what I value, what I imagine will be important to me, and then putting it down on paper. So the hard part about that is that we are thinking into an uncertain or maybe abstract kind of time. Even if right now any of us are living with chronic illness, with a terminal illness, with an ailment where we think we know what to expect with our body, with what our condition will unfold into, we still don't know. I actually had a patient with hospice who was at home with cancer, with fairly advanced head and neck cancer. He was having a terrible time at home, living by himself, so we got to bring him to the residence. And after much ado to get him settled in there, we got him sort of all tucked in and feeling settled. And then within an hour of getting to the residence, even with terminal cancer, he ended up dying of a heart attack. So even with a hospice team with palliative care where we think we're looking at this very short amount of time, we still don't know what's going to happen. So there's some more uncertain things I'll talk about, but I want to also make sure I mention that advanced directives only come into play when we can no longer make decisions for ourselves. So as long as we're in sound mind and we can communicate in some way, we will make decisions for ourselves. So if something happened to me right now and I have the decision, do I want to have a feeding tube? And I could speak for myself, I'm of sound mind, I will decide in that moment with those circumstances if that's what I want to do. And of course, we know that just changes. I could feel one way today about it and another way 5 months from now, and I'll make that different decision as I would like. So advanced directives are only when we can't speak for ourselves. That might be because of an accident, because we're unconscious, due to a medical event that just happened. It might be because we're withdrawn in the lattermost stages of the end of life. It might be because of a cognitive issue where doctors determined that I couldn't make a safe decision on my own behalf. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have some changing things. So even if I were to believe I know exactly what's going to unfold with my body, sometimes we don't. We also have an evolving and changing idea about what quality of life means and what our values are. I had a family who gave birth to a baby who didn't have a long prognosis at all. Family was incredibly sure they wanted no life-extending treatments, did a most in advance, totally just decided, medical team on board, everybody on board. And she did better than anyone expected. 2 years later, against everything they thought they wanted, they decided to have a feeding tube and do a trach with their daughter. So a lot can change over time, and what we imagine we would want is sometimes different when the event is actually happening. The other thing that changes, of course, is our family situation. If we think about, 10 years ago, what was our family situation? Who were our closest friends? Who would we have called on for help and support? Sometimes that's the same folks. And that's great, but sometimes that changes. So again, when we're looking into an uncertain future, sometimes we're imagining a situation where even just those people we would call on for support might be different than we think, and that might change our decision. And the other thing, of course, in this particular moment, we're reminded of how uncertain this world is, and that we have no idea what is around the corner in terms of just our world circumstances. We think about advance directives as making choices about life-extending treatment or not, and we don't often consider a time like the present where there might not even be some of those choices to make. There might not be the opportunity to even use life-extending equipment. It might not be available. So given all that, that's really the reason that having a healthcare proxy is one of our most important documents. Advance directives can include binding, legal, or medical doctor order documents, such as the MOLST, the medical order for life-sustaining treatment, that has subsumed the usual DNR, the do not resuscitate form. So the MOLST covers do not resuscitate. It also talks about intubation, artificial hydration and nutrition, about antibiotics, about general philosophy of care. Sometimes people go to a lawyer and they have a living will drawn up. There's also more informal living wills, just to help us all reflect on what is most important to us right now, emotionally, spiritually, again, with our values. So those documents can be really helpful, and on the HospiCare blog, on the website, there's more information, and I've written a little bit more specifically, given our short time today. There's more to say about all of those documents and about when to use them. But they all only come into play during an event, as I said, where we're not able to make decisions for ourselves, and where the medical professional who is at hand, who will execute any life-extending treatment, has that form in front of them. There are times where a court, where a judge, where there are legal proceedings, where an illness is drawn out, and there's time to go through someone's papers or really wrestle with something that someone wrote. But most of the time, we're in a crisis at a time where some of these decisions are made. And so those documents, again, they only come into play when they're right in front of the person who might need to heed them. And they might or might not address the particular situation. So by naming a healthcare proxy is someone who we decide can make decisions on our behalf if we can't. It's a very simple form. We just need 2 witnesses. The person you appoint doesn't even have to know that you've appointed them, but it would be really good if they did, because they might have to make some decisions for you. And that healthcare proxy is so empowered that even if you've done a living will, that you've done all sorts of anything you could with a lawyer, all you can with a doctor, an appointed healthcare proxy can look at a particular situation that's unfolded and think about what your wishes, what your values really are, and apply them to the situation to help with that decision. They can also override any document that has been put together before the time of the event. So if you've said no intubation, no matter what, period, end of story, you've written it out 5 times, you've told everyone you know, and that healthcare proxy thinks in this particular situation that really would be best, that's what will happen. So it's really important to have someone who's really informed about your values, who knows you deeply, and who you talk to over time about what is most important to you, and who you believe can apply your wishes over their own. So the healthcare proxy has the advantage of being able to look at the situation that really has arisen that maybe you couldn't imagine, and to make that decision for you, given all the factors. But the other component of that is just to make sure that they're really well informed, so that they are making the decision that you would also agree is best. So our time has already gone so quickly. I can see comments. If you want to put up any questions, we'll just take a couple minutes for anything that is on anyone's mind from what I've shared already. As I said, just to give people a minute for any questions, this information is online, of course, on the internet in general, but also at the HospiCare website. And yeah, looks like there aren't really, let's see if there's a chat question. No, looks like there's not really any questions. So we'll leave it at that this morning. So I again just want to let you know these documents are both available, but also thanks, Terry. I miss seeing you too. But also to know that our staff is really well informed and invested in having all of our community and our patients well informed and able to access all of this information. So please feel free to contact us at HospiCare. We support residents of Cortland and Tompkins County, and we speak to individuals and groups about the importance of end-of-life planning. Our goal is to make sure your wishes are expressed and respected. You can also email info@hospicare.org or call our number 607-272-0212. Thank you again so much for joining us today. We love getting feedback, so please leave a comment, share this post if you think it would be helpful to anyone else. Of course, this series is free. If you'd ever like to make a donation to HospiCare now or in the future, please just visit hospicare.org/donate.